today's tackle talk, I wanted to come down Bayshore. I did one of my tackle talks here before, and I mean, you can just see how much stuff got ruined over here. I mean, there's people's homes, or just there's stuff all outside their homes. There's two boats right here, just completely out of the water. There's another one that went into Bayshore Pier. It's just crazy. What's up, guys? Chris from One More Cast. So I'm doing today's taco talk at a kayak launch that I've actually used once or twice. I never really filmed here, but I have used it a couple times just to try it out, see how it was. And they're actually doing construction here now. Whenever I used it, there was a couple parking spots over this way behind me, and it was just like a sloped hill, and that's all it was, and that's what I launched from. It looks like they're actually building an actual kayak launch here now from the looks of it. I haven't been here in a really long time, but I figured I'd do my tackle talk here. So in the beginning of the video, I did a little bit of driving around, and I drove through Bayshore, and that's where I did one of my first tackle talks, was at Bayshore, the old pier. And as you can see, there's boats actually on land right now. That whole area got completely destroyed. I mean, they got hit by a huge storm surge from Hurricane Helene, so I wanted to drive by there, see what it looked like, and the whole place is completely destroyed. And then I tried to go to Port Charlotte Beach also, because that's where I originally planned on doing my tackle talk, and that it's actually closed also. So I'm pretty sure every launch in Charlotte County, I'm pretty sure, is closed right now, from what I've heard by talking to people, and I mean from what I've seen by driving around. I haven't seen one that's actually open yet and available for use. So today's tackle talk, I want to talk about different jig heads slash hooks, and which baits can be utilized on each one, when and where to use each one. Oh my god, that is a huge snook. I think he's got it. Got him. Oh yeah. This is a nice one. Come on. Get some ground on him. There we go. That's a nice trout right there. Holy cow, look at this thing. We're gonna measure him up. That trout tickle right there, man. That color. I just got slammed on that color today, guys. That doesn't say something. Oh, that's a tarpon. Alright guys, so the first one I want to talk about is the weighted weedless hook right here. Now this is the Z-Man EWG hook. It's got a keeper up here, made for the Z-Man Elastex, and then it's also got this rubber ring right here, and what that does is whenever you slide this up, it prevents your bait from getting pushed down. These were made actually for the bigger baits, mostly these Mullitrons right here. That's so they made it a wider gap hook, and I actually ended up using these for all of them now. I use them for my jerk shads, I use them for my paddle tails, you know, I use them for pretty much all my baits that I run fully weedless on. Now, one thing I will point out, so if you're using a 4-inch or bigger, I would go with a 4.0 hook. With these 3-inch ones right here, these 3-inch minnow Z's, I would definitely go with a 3.0 hook. It sits on there a little better. Same thing if you're using a 4-inch. I'm actually out of them right now, but if you're using a 4-inch jerk shad, which I use a lot on the jig heads, I'd go with a 3/0 hook also. Using these 5-inch ones, they'll work on a 3/0 hook. I mean, this one's rigged up on a 3/0 hook, and at my last trip, I actually caught a pretty nice redfish on it. But you really want to use this bait. You really want to use this hook, this hook setup when you're fishing really shallow water. I usually only throw this between 3 feet or less, really. It keeps it really weedless, and the reason being is whenever you're swimming this through, it wants to come to the top of the water more. It doesn't really stay down too low unless you're pausing a lot. Like during wintertime, I'll use this a lot just because I'll let it fall to the bottom, then I'll swim it a little bit and let it fall to the bottom. But I won't ever really throw this in anything deeper than 3 feet of water. Now I will pitch it, the heavier ones, underneath docks sometimes, but for the most part I use this for pitching up under mangroves with the jerk shads or with the paddle tails to get it really deep up in the mangroves, just because when you have a bait rigged on this hook, it definitely skips a lot better. But as far as when to use it, 3 feet or less, I wouldn't use it in anything deeper than 3 feet. So now the next one I'm going to talk about is the Texas Eye jig head. Now you guys know I always have this tied on all the time. This is it right here. So this jig head right here will work great with every single bait I have laid out here. It'll work good with the 3-inch minnow Z's. I mean, it works well with a 4-inch minnow Z. It works great with the 4-inch paddlers. It works great with the Mullitrons. This is the 3.3-inch. And then it also works very well with the 4-inch also. It works great with all of these baits I have laid out in front of me. The only one I'd say exception to is a 5-inch paddlers or a 5-inch diesel minnow, just because whenever you get to a 5-inch, the hook placement's not going to come out that great. It will work though. I mean, I have caught fish on the 5-inch bait on a Texas Eye. I mean, if you look at it, I mean, where it comes out at, it's not too bad. It'll come out right here in the back. This jig head right here though, this weedless jig head will work great with every single bait I have laid out here, and even the Z-Man, the non-Elastec. You got this saltwater assassin, that's a 4-inch bait. I've got the mirror lure Little John. I have the mirror lure eel. I mean, this will also work great if you do that hack that I showed you guys where you take this keeper off, then those baits will also fit on this perfectly. So as far as water depth and when I would use this, so I don't use this really for pitching under mangroves. I'll use it for running along mangroves, but really any water depth, as long as you control the weight of the jig head right there. I got these in 1/4 ounce, 3 16th ounce, and 1/8 ounce. So I primarily throw these in about 4 feet or less 90% of the time, but you can pitch it under docks, you can pitch it up against the mangroves. The only thing that sucks with this is when it comes to skipping. So if you're trying to skip it under mangroves or skip it under docks, this doesn't skip well, because this jig head is on a swivel. Whenever you go to skip it, sometimes it'll hit and go straight down, sometimes it'll skip, but for the most part I would not use this for skipping under mangroves or skipping under docks. I'd use it for, you know, open areas, working it over and around oyster bars, stuff like that. This is a very versatile bait and it'll work pretty much anywhere you want it to. The only downside to this one is for skipping baits. So this is what it looks like rigged up, and this is on a 3-inch minnow Z. And what I love about these Z-Man baits is if you look on, especially with the diesel minnow, this fin right here, and then even on the minnow Z, it's got that fin, so it kind of keeps that hook nice and weedless. It kind of covers it. Any of the other ones, I usually just bury it down into the top. I'll just bury it in the top a little bit, and that makes it fully weedless. But you know, this weedless jig head is all around. I mean, this was a game changer when they came out with this. This just completely changed the game, and this has been my favorite way to throw any of these baits, hands down. Every time I go out, you'll never catch me out there without one of these tied on. Okay, so the next bait I want to talk about is the Trouty jig head. So the Trouty jig head I'll use on most of these baits out here in front of me. When I'm throwing this, so I keep these in same weights. I keep an 1/8 ounce, 3 16th ounce, and a 1/4 ounce. So the 1/8 ounce I'll throw real shallower, you know, up against mangroves, stuff like that, shallower mangroves. 3 feet or less, I'm throwing an 1/8 ounce. Anything more, I'm throwing a 3/16 ounce or a 1/4 ounce. But yeah, I'll use these with paddle tails. I'll use them with you know, the Little John. I'll use them with the shrimps right here. I'll even use them with the jerk shrimps. These work great on them. I mean, I'll use them on any of these baits except for the 5-inch baits. I would only use this on a 4-inch bait or smaller. And honestly, I wouldn't use it on anything less than a 3-inch bait. So 3 and 4-inch baits, this works great. Anything less than that, I'd go with the Trouty. They have a Trouty finesse jig head, and it's actually a little bit shorter shank than this Trouty. That one works great on a little bit smaller baits. So next one I'm going to talk about is the Redfish eye. So the difference between the Redfish eye and the Trouty is the length of the shank. Now this is a 3/16 ounce, this is 1/8 ounce, but the difference in the shank, this has a longer shank. So I use this one for the 4-inch Molotron. It works great. I'll use it for the 5-inch Z-Man paddlers. I'll use it for the 5-inch jerk shads. I'll use it for the 5-inch trout trick. And you can even use it on a 4-inch diesel minnow. It works fine. You know, where the hook comes out at is still really good. You still get a lot of action in it. The 4-inch paddlers I'll use it on. I don't use it on this one, on the 3.3, because of where it comes out at. So I'd actually use a Trouty on this one over a Redfish eye. Same with the 3-inch, I'd go with the Trouty over the Redfish eye. Now this one I use same thing pretty much. I'll throw it in shallow water. I'll just use an 1/8 ounce, 3 feet or less. I use an 1/8 ounce. More than 3 feet, I go to a 3/16 or a 1/4 ounce. Now the Trouty and the Redfish eye are great for skipping. These things will skip really far in the mangroves. You can skip them around docks. The only downfall is it does have an exposed hook. So because you do have these exposed hooks, you run the chance of getting caught on a piling or on rope that's hanging down from a dock, or a mangrove root or anything like that. If you're working it too shallow, you can get caught in the grass. It can cause drag. You can pick up grass. That's the only downside to them. But for the most part, they're great for skipping. I mean, I can skip these far up in the mangroves, far under docks. It's just you do run the risk of having that exposed hook. Now your hookup ratio on these versus the Texas eye is going to be a lot better. You have a higher odds of hookup ratio on an exposed hook than a hidden hook. But as far as like I said, as far as the sink rate, sink's great. I mean, skip's great. I mean, it's all around great hook. Both these jig heads are great jig heads to use. Okay, so for the final one, this is the Z-Man. It's the Pro Bullets jig head. Now there's two different ones. This one is just got weighted in the front, but you can buy the one that also has a weight in the belly also. There's two different ones. The one that's weighted in the belly, I'm out of them. I don't have them right now, but these are great. Now I love throwing the kicker crabs on these. They're awesome. And same aspect with all these other, besides this one right here, you can put a kicker crab on the Texas eye, the trout eye. I'd stay away from the Redfish eye, but the Texas eye and the trout eye you could also run a kicker crab on. They work great, but I like throwing them on these Pro Bullets jig heads. It makes it to where it's really nice and weedless. It works great. I mean, I use these hooks a lot during winter time. They skip really good. I mean, and they all around put a lot of action in your bait for you. I throw these jerk shrimps on them a lot, and you can see how it just sits there in teeter-totters, and that's pretty much how it does it on the hook. It'll sit there just like this on the bottom, and it just goes back and forth. I'll throw these shrimps on that one. I haven't tried throwing a trout trick on it yet, but I'm not sure how the hook placement is. I'm actually going to have to try that out and see how it works, but I haven't tried the trout trick on it yet. The 4-inch jerk shads work great on those. The 5-inch ones, it's a little too long, so I don't really throw it on there. And then I don't really throw any paddle tails on it. I use those mainly for crustacean baits, use them for the crabs, the shrimps, and stuff like that. Now, coming back to the trout eye, one thing I forgot, which you guys see in my videos all the time, like my #1 favorite thing to throw on this is a 4-inch jerk shad. I'm out of them right now. My last one is actually set up on my pole right now. So I have to actually have to go to tackle shop this week before the weekend and go get some more 4-inch jerk shads. All right, so these are all pretty much all the hooks that I use, all the jig heads and weighted hooks that I use. They all work really great. Okay, one hook that I actually forgot about and I just remembered that I had it, this is actually my last one, is the Z-Man. This is the Chinlock's hook right here. And the difference pretty much between these two hooks is, if you look, so if you look, the ZWG has a much bigger gap in the hook, much bigger gap, and because both these are 4.0 hooks, and this one has a much bigger gap in between the base of the hook and the point of the hook. So, and then the only difference is pretty much you got your keeper here on the Chinlocks, whereas on the ZWG hook you actually have the keeper up top. So one thing I've noticed is this does get a little annoying sometimes. Sometimes it makes it harder to re-rig the bait after you hooked into a fish, but you can still do it. So as far as rigging, I like this. As far as rigging, this one is a lot easier to rig than re-rig the bait after you caught a fish. But as far as hook sets, this one has definitely hooked more fish because it has that wider gap, and I'm actually able to use this on all my baits that I throw, versus this one doesn't work well with the Mullitrons or any of the thicker baits just because it doesn't have that wide gap right here. Alright guys, so this is really all the terminal tackle I really use as far as jig heads and weighted hooks. Like I said, weighted hooks I'll use more when it comes to wintertime, on those lower tides when I have to get really shallow, or if I'm skipping up underneath mangroves. All these jig heads I utilize, I mean, every time I go out, except for the redfish eye. Redfish eye I'm actually going to start using a lot more now that we're coming into fall. But anytime between winter and like spring, even into summer, I'm really just using the trout eye or the Texas eye. Those two really do it for me 90% of the time. Every once in a while I'll pull out this redfish eye and I'll use it. And the only other reason I really would use it is if I want to keep the bait, my paddle tail, lower in the water column. So if you look at where the eye placement is right there, how it's shooting forward, and then if you look at this one right here on the trout eye, it's pointing straight up. So essentially what that does is when you're pulling this one through the water, it's gonna pull more like this and stay lower in the water column, whereas this one right here, whenever you reel on it, it's gonna naturally want to pull it up. So this one I mainly use for like bouncing on the bottom and or like bouncing through the water column, as opposed to this one. This one is mainly used for more of a swim bait style, you know, paddle tails, these Mullitrons, just because it's made to swim through the water column, whereas this one is pretty much made to just bounce through the water column. So that's really the only time I really do prefer this one over the trout eyes, when I'm trying to swim like a swim bait through the water. But this is pretty much all the terminal tackle I use, except for one. I just picked it up the other day, and I actually didn't realize I was out of 4-inch jerk shads till just recently, but or else I would have got those then. But I picked up another one. I'm actually excited to use it. So the jig heads have been working great. The 4-inch paddler has been just killing it for me lately. You know, that 4-inch slam shady has just been dominating, and and spoons have also been doing really good. So I got to looking, and I know iStrike came out with a jig head that I really wanted to try, and I've been waiting till fall time to use it really, and I went and picked one up, and I'm excited to use it now. I have one, so this video is actually going to come out before my Monday trip. So I already posted, the last one that just posted was when I went out Sunday. I went out on Monday, I filmed at 19th Street. This one's gonna post on Thursday. I like putting my tackle talks out on Thursdays, and then I'm gonna try to have my other one edited by the weekend. But so my next trip now, so this isn't gonna be the next video you watch, but the one after, it's the bullseye right here, the bullseye spinnerbait. I got it in the 3/16 ounce, and what it's got, the spoon, and it's also got the jig head. So I think if I put a 4-inch diesel mount behind this thing, it might actually attract a lot of fish. So I'm actually going to try this out in my next video. This is going to be a new addition. this could be a new addition to my tackle box. Like I said, I mean, my Busby, it's full of terminal tackle. I mean, I honestly use terminal tackle more than I use anything. I use soft plastics more than anything. I do throw hard baits a lot. I mean, I do throw lures, but when it comes down to it, I usually have one hard bait tied on and then 2 or 3 other soft plastics tied on. So my terminal tackle, I mean, if I get you my Busby box right now, I mean, this thing, it's slap full. I mean, this is my heaviest box that I have, and it's slap full. But yeah, hopefully this becomes a new addition to my Busby box, and like I said, hopefully it does good. Well, I hope you guys enjoy this video. Hope you guys got a lot out of it. Like I said, hope you guys learned something from it, and maybe you found a new way to rig a new bait. Like I said, I still keep these, Little Johns. I don't throw them all the time, but I still keep them because there is a time and place that I do love throwing these. Just like the mirror lure eels, these are great, especially in the other color. I need to get some because I like throwing them, especially this time of year. It's pretty much like a clear color with a chartreuse tail. I mean, I love throwing that one too. And then my saltwater assassins, I still keep these in my tackle box also. Each one has a time and place, like I said, but all these baits will work on most of these jig heads. You just have to figure out when and where to throw each one. Like I said, jig heads, most of the time I'm throwing those in deeper water. I will throw them in shallower water up against mangroves, but I rarely run these across grass flats just because it gets caught up so easily because of the exposed hook. And I mean, this thing right here it just does so well. So the only time I really throw this jig head over this one in shallow areas is if I'm going up against mangroves and I want to try to skip it a little bit further, or along docks. But I mean, like I said, this thing was a game changer. This Texas, it's by far my favorite piece of terminal tackle I have in my Busby box. And like I said, I always have one tied on. There's never a time where I don't have it tied on. But I'm gonna go ahead and get out of here. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification so you're notified when I post a new video. Remember guys, there's always time for one more cast. I'll see you later.